But I did have this false sense of that I was a lot better than I was. But the high school performer, right? Is doesn't make it to Broadway often.
Yeah, but you did make it to college, so
Yeah, I did, and I was a theater major, and I did um, musical theater there too. So that was fun.
I'm curious then, wasn't didn't really script this out. I don't usually script things out to begin with, but
Right.
uh, I'm wondering how feelings showed up on the stage for you. Did you have practices or
Well, it's very interesting that you say that. That's a very interesting because I am trained as a method actor. Okay, so what that means is that it wants you to find these emotions from your past, from somewhere in your life, and bring it onto the stage. A large part of my experience on stage, or the reason why I went to the arts, is to get away from my life. I felt that how I was showing up in life wasn't enough, or people didn't appreciate, right? I didn't know who I was, and I felt that who I knew of myself, people didn't appreciate. So I wanted to be anybody else.
mm,
So me pretending to be someone else, not showing my true feelings, because outside of the stage, I was this shy, quiet kid.
mm,
So people were surprised that this shy, quiet kid was on stage. And so my feelings weren't on stage.
mm.
The feelings that I felt that people would have, the feelings that I saw from people, and I just kind of went with those archetypes that I've created.
Okay. So were you tapping into your own experiences, or were you, so to speak, borrowing from other people?
I think more borrowing from, because for me, how feelings had to be controlled,
Mm,
right? You had to put things in check, because in my childhood, um, emotions were out of control, and it wasn't mine. It was the people that were around me. So
sure.
people were mad, people were angry. It turned into abuse and danger
Mm,
and violence. And so from my little kid mind, it was like, okay, feelings are bad,
mm,
right? So and especially mad, sad, all of the bad feelings. And so, like Brene Brown says, when you shut off one, right, you shut them
mm,
all off, right?
right.
And so you miss. And so there was a lot of ways that I wasn't showing up emotionally, and so people didn't see me as this. I don't want to say human being, but it kind of, sometimes it felt that way. It was like, oh, Bill, Bill doesn't get hurt or something. We could say anything, and Bill,
Mm.
he doesn't, because I just didn't show you that. Yeah, you just hurt my feelings, or you just, there was something. I was angry about something,
Definitely. Yeah.
and it just didn't come up.
So it wasn't that you weren't feeling the feelings, it was that you
Right,
weren't
expressing them. Right,
emoting the feeling.
right, emoting. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what? You just pointed out something that the Toastmaster Club that I'm starting, World of Difference, has got a surprising number of uh, dramatists in it, people who
Mm,
studied theater and so forth and have been on stages
right.
and which I think is interesting.
Right.
And my reflection on that was, and I've never been on stage for other than maybe a third grade,
Right.
musical where
You're
I'm
a tree or something,
eating
right?
popcorn or something. And
Right.
it's like no part where I had to perform on stage other than, some really, really simple.
Right.
And my conversation about that was I was just way too insecure and way too shy to, show up on stage.
Great.
Whereas what you just said was it was because you were insecure and it was a place for you to kind of escape it. It sounds like.
Right. Look, this is I don't know if I've shared this with you and most of the people that were in Toastmasters for me, with me over the years. I used my theater background to get through the first 10 um, speeches.
Hmm.
You didn't hear anything about William or Bill.
Huh.
I created a character and I produced speeches.
Huh. So
And
your
it,
icebreaker speech, which is for those of you who don't know how
right,
Toastmasters works, one of the first, in fact, the first speech that you give, whether you're in the classical model that you're talking about
right,
right now, or you're in the new model, which is pathways. But either way, the first speech you give is your icebreaker speech. And in that
right,
speech, one of the things that has always killed me about the way that speech is presented is everybody loves to talk about themselves. And so this speech, we make this speech easy for everybody to do because it's
right,
about your favorite subject, you.
right.
And it sounds like your experience was similar to mine. We're like, no, that is not what I want to talk about.
Right. It is really and it's like I didn't create, and so I don't want people to hear that, it's like, yeah, everything that I did for the first um 10 speeches was a lie. But there I created a character, which was Bill Brown.
Mm,
And so there were parts of my life or parts of things that I wanted to talk about, but I really didn't tap into what I felt about it, how I wanted to share, what I felt my voice was, what my leadership was. We didn't have any of those. I didn't have any of those conversations to develop my speeches. It was a very crafted way of looking at basically doing the exercises. And um, I got to the place where it was like, you know what? I've been in Toastmasters for a while. I want to get the benefit. I really want to see what I have to say.
mm,
And I piss some people off. People were concerned, about some of me finding my voice and how I wanted to show up. But that was fine. It allowed me to get to a place where I could really tell people how I feel. My first published piece was in college, and it was in a literary magazine, and it was The Art of Being Inhuman.
mm.
And it was one line: tell them what you feel. That's it.
So
Tell
what do you mean
people
by
what
that?
you feel. At the time, this is my 19-year-old self. So I'm just channeling my 19-year-old self, and what I believed that I meant at the time is that the more that sorry about that, the more that I tell people what I really feel, then people will have a judgment of you.
Mm,
People will call you inhuman. People will, be upset with you.
sure.
If you don't, when you don't speak your mind and when you don't tell people what how you feel, you're not inhuman. You're just, you're one of us. You put up,
Mm,
we put that up. And so there was a sense in my how I was showing up that I couldn't be human,
mm,
you know, because if I really express my feelings on a real level, what I was really dealing with, then I was inhuman. I was really not. It's like I said, it was very it was a very interesting take as a 19-year-old at the time. But that was really where I felt that I had to. My humanity was so warped
mm.
that I felt that I had to just be this type, this character of myself. And so that's what I did. And in some cases, if I want to be really honest, that's what Bill Brown was all about,
Hmm.
was the people pleasing, nice guy, that, can do attitude. And that worked until it didn't work.
Hmm.
Right. And
Yeah.
that's why now I'm William Brown. Right.
Nice. And I can relate to that. It One of the comments that I have either frequently gotten or that has been said a number of times that really initially stung was the idea that I think differently than other people, right?
Yeah.
And when my
Yeah.
whole focus was on not being different, was fitting in, kind of like what you're saying,
Right.
that for someone to point out that I think differently was like, felt literally like a slap in the face. You know,
Right.
it was
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
It was like the odd, and I think that's why the conversation that I'm having around being a self-awareness coach, and just like you, embracing the uniqueness of you, being aware of where you show up and not your character or your representative. And to, sometimes or some days, speaking for myself, it's easier than others to kind of just be, I'm just William Brown.
Mm,
This is what I'm doing. This is how William Brown is showing up in his business and in his relationships. And there's some days it's like, good Lord, oh my God, William, please, just do the damn ClickFunnels, right? I mean, it's like all of, all of the things that, my uniqueness, it feels like it gets in the way of me just showing up as everybody else.
right. Yeah, going through the motions. And I had an experience yesterday, last evening, where one of the things that I've been creating seemed to be called into question. And it
Mm,
wasn't overt. It honestly took me all night to process this and to
mm,
kind of figure out, what's going on. Why am I not? And it wasn't ClickFunnels, but that type of idea. Why am I
right,
not just, for one, why wasn't I just going to bed because it was freaking really, really late?
right.
Uh, but after some time to process it, what I realized is that now that I've started to show up, now that I've started to let Steve be seen,
Hmm.
emotions and all, weird ideas and all,
Right.
different experiences and all, it's really hard to put the genie back in the bottle, right?
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
and I'm not saying, that I'm a genie or anything, but just that idea of, once I've started to express myself,
Right.
and let myself be seen, and let my emotions be seen, you
Right.
know, it's hard to stuff that back into,
Right.
the genie's bottle, Pandora's box, whatever you want to call it.
Right. It is something, and I appreciate you sharing that, because it comes up within my coaching and in my life since I've embraced this self-discovery journey. It's like when I become aware how I'm showing up, that is not me.
Mm,
It's like then there's like a choice. It's like, okay, are you not going to show up as yourself right now? Right. And it's just like, crap,
yeah, yeah,
right. It's like, I'm showing up as myself. Right. So this is what we're going to do. And we're just kind of dealing with that. There is, I do the one word conversations show. And I had a guess. I'm not going to tell you their word, or I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to give you their name, because I just I don't know. I'm still processing it, and I don't want them to get hate mail or anything like that, or something. I don't want people to be in their DM. But right before we were about to go on the show, um, they said to me that, "Hey, I think it's very unprofessional of you not to introduce your guests." And I was like, "What?" And it was like, "Yeah, that's like podcaster 101, and you're just not being professional by not doing that. You need to just introduce your guests powerfully and do that, and you're not doing it." And I says, "Oh, okay. But this is why I ask people to introduce themselves, is because I believe that how we speak of ourselves is who's listening and who's speaking in the conversation. And I want to have a conversation with that person. I don't want to have a conversation with their bio."
Mm,
And he was like, "Oh, okay." And it was like, in that moment, I was like pissed off, right? You know, and then there's a part of me was like, "Oh, maybe they're right. Maybe I'm not being professional. Maybe and I'm like questioning my unique way, because I've had people say, "Oh, I really enjoy, the way you start your show and kind of bring me in," because they get it,
mhm,
you know. And it's like, look, some people, when I give them that opportunity, they give me their bio.
mm,
That's fine. Right.
sure.
And some, they talk about things that they've never shared, on a podcast before, or or especially with somebody that they don't know. And it's that type of experience and moment is what I'm doing it for. And if I would have not been myself or got all in my feelings, right? It's
Mm,
like, now I'm mad, right? How dare you, right? All that. I just allowed them to just say what they say. And it's like, okay, I'm just gonna, I'm just gonna be myself,
sure.
but it really, there was that time, like you were saying, of processing it and kind of, okay, how do I feel about this?
Mm,
Why do I feel this way? What am I going to, and just kind of just going through that to get to the fact that I still allow people to introduce themselves.
mm, that's interesting. You know, it, it's interesting how we show up for ourselves. And I also want to point out something that you talked about being pissed off, right?
Right.
In the moment that and acknowledging that. And one of the things we're talking about today is, that real men feel, and for that matter, everybody feels.
Mhm.
It's interesting how in our culture, well, I tear up like at the drop of a hat. I mean, a Hallmark commercial comes on and I'm tearing up by the end.
Right.
It's not quite that extreme, but it's pretty dang close.
Right.
But I still always find myself kind of hiding it, like, oh, I'm
Right.
just yawning, or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let my real emotions show, because it's not okay for guys to cry. It's not okay for people to get mad. It's not okay for
Right.
people to feel,
Right.
and so we, going back to that genie or the box or whatever, we try to shove our emotions
Right.
into a sack and say, okay, I'm not going to feel that. I'm not going to process that. I'll deal with it later.
Right.
Um, so we write a big IOU to our, our heart or emotions or whatever.
Right.
And I know from a couple of conversations that we've had outside of this conversation right now, that we've both talked about how starting to be real with our feelings, that
Mhm.
starting to acknowledge those feelings and starting to say, okay, you know what, instead of running from those feelings, I'm going to start embracing those feelings. And
Right.
especially, with your role as a self-awareness coach.
Right.
And I would think that, a big part of that self-awareness is, what, I've got feelings, you
Right.
know.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think it's, for me, just the realization that there were so many emotions that I was like repressing. And I didn't, I thought it was just the bad ones,
Mm,
right? And I thought but it was just like, you know, I would say things like, "Oh yeah, you know that was nice, or that was happy," and it was like, I'm happy right now, and it's just like, whoa, why can't I just, be that? There
mm,
was just so many emotions that were measured for me, and that's just how I show up. With a smile on my face. I mean, even with a smile on my face, I would say, you know what, I'm pretty mad right now, right?
mm.
And it's just like, and it was just like, and people are like, "Are you?" Right? It's like,
Tell your face that, right?
right, and it's like, because I just wanted to, like you said, it's like kind of stuff it down, put it later, and I learned, kind of the hard way, last year, when I had a pain in my neck, and I lost feeling in my right hand.
Mm,
And I went to a holistic chiropractor, and he said, "Oh yeah, you have like rage in your neck." And it's like, rage, I was like, "Can we like start at anger?" Right? I mean, it's like, and but it was, and so I just like had, because it was like that IOU. It's like, okay, I can't show this anger, right?
mm.
And so I'll just stuff it down, and it just kind of like showed up in my neck. And
Wow.
I had someone on the show, say, emotions are energy in motion, right?
Mm,
And when we stuff our emotions, and our that energy down, our feelings, right, then it shows up somewhere, right?
mhm,
It's like, and so there is, the different pains in your body is because there is some energy that wasn't released somewhere.
mm,
And realizing that I was this buttoned up, buttoned down, nice, with a smile on my face guy that was like, I wouldn't say killing himself, but at least hurting himself.
mm. Yeah.
And getting to the place where it's like, good Lord, what am I not only like mad about, but it's like enraged about
Mm.
right now. And that process of just releasing that, and so I can get the movement of my right hand.
You know what?
And
I think that's interesting. The point that just you had rage, embodied, in
mhm,
your neck and in the loss of your hand, or at least a feeling in your hand.
right,
And yet you didn't have, it doesn't sound like you had clarity, awareness as to what that rage is all about, right?
right, I didn't,
And
right,
similarly for me, when I was deep in depression, I mean, deep in depression, and for me, I'm literally, my emotions, my not processing my emotions was literally killing me. Uh,
mm,
I had no language for it. I had no idea what was going on, right? I was just so out of touch. I was having feelings, but I didn't express those feelings. And so I didn't have
right,
facility to, one, to deal with them, just to acknowledge, hey, you know what? I'm not very happy. In fact, I'm
right,
pretty dang miserable. And
right,
just acknowledging that, acknowledging the pain in your neck, like literally the pain in your
right,
neck.
yeah.
And I'm wondering how that showed up. How did that process? What was the evolution of that?
It was really just, sitting quiet, right? It took a number of treatments, and it just kind of that inward search of what wasn't I allowing myself to be angry about.
Mm,
And look, and I will say it, I have now access to that. um i um I have shared on my show that I've had, a trauma in in my marriage, in my former business that I shut down. And that trauma and me being on the other side of it, which is, a win, but my desire to survive it, I didn't grieve it.
Mm,
And so there were a lot of things that I was disappointed, angry, mad about that was happening, that I just kind of like, I don't got time for this. I
mm,
gotta get back to work. I gotta fix my marriage. I gotta, all the other things that I had to do,
right.
putting my emotions and that disappointment on pause. It just like stored up, and I was angry with myself.
Mm,
I was disappointed that in all of my care for, the surroundings, my wife, all that, I didn't take care of myself.
mm,
And it's like, you're not going to take care of me, we're not going to take care of you,
mm,
right? And it just really, the more that I started forgiving myself and really being with those feelings of disappointment and sadness, of, you know, the life that I thought, that I was building, and that I had. I mean, I say during that time that I wasn't having an identity crisis. My identity was in crisis.
mm, mm,
And it just caused me to just really be so far away from me. And I think that's how I got to the place of asking the question, who am I?
mm,
And from that simple question, it's, became years of healing, and, my business. And, I don't want to wait until, I don't want people to wait until, a trauma,
yes.
for that. Um, but some of us, we need that, right? That's the
Right.
only
That
way we
major
live, right?
wake up call in order to, hey,
Right. And so the more that I invite people to just find ways that they're aware of how they're showing up with no
mm,
judgment.
mm,
There are some things that even within my awareness, I'll still do the same thing. It's like, hey, you're gonna eat that cookie? Yeah, you know, and right, it's that type of thing. Even though it's like, yeah, even though you say you're gonna cut down on your sweets, right?
mm,
It's like, yeah, right now I want a damn cookie. I'm like 54 years old, right? And it's that type of thing. I can be aware, and it's like that. Every time I have those moments, I chuckle because, I go back to GI Joe when I was a kid, where they would say knowing is half the battle. That's
mm,
just a lie. you know Knowing is the beginning of the battle, right?
mm, mm,
Because you still have a choice if you're going to get in the battle.
sure. Yep.
And so it's for me to just realize that at the beginning of that, awareness is just the key.
Mm,
If and whatever I do with that key is still up to me. That's where I come in.
sure.
And I think that's the same thing when we get access to our feelings. It is, all right, this is what I'm feeling. What, am I going to allow this moment? There's a reason why these feelings are coming up.
Hmm.
And I'm either going to honor that and kind of be with that and have that kind of, most of the times when people say, you're all in your feelings, it's almost, it's like too much,
Hmm.
right? It's like, there when I think of my feelings, it is like it's not enough or too much, right? It's like, when is a time where it's, the perfect amount of feelings I did right today. No one ever
Danger, danger.
Right. No one ever says, when you express your feelings the other day, it was a perfect amount, right?
Just the
It was
right amount.
appropriate, right? It was appropriate, right? And so it's that type of thing. It's that dance. The more that we're present and the more
Mm,
that we're willing to just be in our feelings, as they say, then we're part of our humanity.
mm, that's a really good point. I had an exchange, let's say, with my son this morning, and it got a little heated, so to speak. And
Intense fellowship is what we say in our house.
intense fellowship. There you go. We were having intense
Right.
fellowship. And I, I respect his frustration. He had a very valid point why he was upset. And we weren't really, we were hearing each other, but we weren't really listening to each other.
Mm,
Right. And part of me is like, this is bad. I shouldn't be doing this, right? I shouldn't be angry. I shouldn't, have my voice elevated. I shouldn't, whatever. And he shouldn't either, for that matter.
right.
And rather than, shooting all over ourselves,
Right.
just allowing that humanity to be there, right now we're mad, right now we're
Right.
upset, right now we've got this frustration going on. And realizing, that just by expressing our feelings, expressing our emotions, doesn't necessarily endanger our relationship,
Right.
right?
Absolutely.
That it actually, if we can give each other space, just like I learned to give myself space with regards to my emotions and, my expression and so forth,
Right.
that in providing that safe space, both for my son to express himself as well as myself to express myself, I and I'm just like stepping into this right now. So this is like
Right.
virgin territory kind of,
Right.
but I know what the result was for me when I started to allow myself to express, and when I
Right.
allowed myself to feel and to have all the different emotions that I had, and starting to look at them as, you know, not necessarily as just messages. It's
Right.
just it's information. It's emotional information, but it's just
Right.
information. And we can choose how we're going to respond to it. Am I going to throw something across the room, or
Right.
am I going to punch the wall? Am I going to whatever? Which are things that I have done in the past. I mean, when I let the
Right.
emotions.
Because the emotions, the energy has to go somewhere, right? And it's like you make a decision that this is where it's going to go. This is how it's going to go.
Yeah, so
And
but by allowing ourselves to have space and just kind of accepting, this is how I'm feeling right now. This is I'm a bringing in that self-awareness of,
right.
what, I'm angry right now, and
Right.
just acknowledging it.
Right.
One of the influential books I read last year was Joan Rosenberg's 90 Seconds to a Life You Love. And it's in it,
Mm,
she talks about uncomfortable feelings, right?
mm,
Uh, disappointment and frustration and anger and so forth.
right.
And her point was that the 90 seconds is if you just really just let yourself feel whatever you're feeling, right? It doesn't
Mm,
have to turn into this, day long, week long, year long process. It can turn into, it can be just 90 seconds, just if you really let yourself feel that
right.
fully for those 90 seconds. And so by allowing ourselves to feel, and allowing each other to feel,
Hmm.
allowing, someone to have a good day or a bad day, or,
Right.
be angry or sad or whatever,
Right.
instead of, okay, well, I need to control this, I need to fix this, or I need to, protect myself, or, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't protect yourself,
Right.
but just, you know, consider what is the space that you're creating,
Right.
and what are how do you both allow yourself as well as allow others to feel. And
Right.
which brings up an interesting point, I think, in that, does our society, does our culture provide a safe space, an open space for men to feel?
The short answer is no. I think we have been conditioned to, to do more than be, right?
Mm,
So there's a doing that it is, if it's either working, in a job or a business, or it's working in a garage, or it's working in a, at the grill, right? I mean, it's like, there's like, there are these man things that you're doing.
mhm,
And with that doing, most of the times I think we're conditioned to talk about our doing. So
mm.
that's why we're easily talking about our our work, you know, how much of a grill master we are, all of, all, the car that we can fix if we can. I'm not one of those,
Me neither.
the things that I could fix. Um, all that. But how are you feeling? How are you doing? I don't I those are not questions that I would get. And when I would get them, the only answer that I could give many times was I don't know.
Mm,
Because one, I don't get asked that question. And two, I'm not connected to how how
mm,
I'm feeling or all that, because I'm so busy doing
mm,
or being concerned about my doing. And look, I think it is I think it is great, to have a great work ethic and to learn how to, stuff grows and all of those things. It's our survival, our responsibility, survival to kind of be able to do some things. I get it.
mm,
However, when feeling, you know, of what we feel about it. I think as a society, and this is what I call a download. It's like something that's just coming to me, and I haven't thought about it, but it's coming out of my mouth. So good luck. I think as a society, we um, we don't want to. If we really embrace our feelings, nothing would get done. I
mm,
mean, I think that's a belief
mm.
that we have. It feels like it's like an operating belief
Sure.
that if a man was feeling, he'd be crying in the corner and shit wouldn't be getting done. It's like
Right.
it's that mentality. It's like, the woman is too emotional to be responsible in this, you know, gig, job, what all all the things that we believe. And it's because of our disconnect of how feelings show up.
Mm,
Um, and and it's like, for me, what I am getting by sitting with my feelings and really having an inquiry around them is that it lets me know what's important to me.
mm,
It lets me know what I care about,
mm,
what I truly care about, and why I care about it, and what, if there's a loss about something, or if there is, it really, because there are some times that, I'm not as bad as you with the Hallmark commercials or anything like that, but there are some times when I'm listening to a song, or I'm watching something, and it's like emotions start happening. It's like, okay, what's that all about? Right. And it's like, it's like, rut-row, right. And it's like, you're trying to, like, for me, I'm trying to understand. And then within that inquiry, I can see that, oh, that's why
mm.
that emotion is coming up. That's
Sure.
why that's important. And it's like, instead of, because I have, I figured out way, go like this, I'm fixing my
Right,
glasses,
right, yes.
all the things to hide when like emotions are, or like coming, up. Um, but yeah, it's just really, instead of putting that energy into hiding them, just allow them to show. And if somebody asks, what's going on right now, Steve, just say, hey, that's sad.
I'm
That's a
having a feeling.
right. That's a cute little dog, right? Right. And it's like, right. And,
Right. That's really
so
interesting. Well, William, thank you for sharing your feelings with us today.
mm,
I
no,
always enjoy our conversations. And I know that you have another engagement coming up shortly.
right.
I want to make sure that our audience here knows how to reach out to you and learn more about, how do we, what is a self-awareness coach, and how can I be more self-aware?
Right. It's the funny thing. Thank you very much. This has definitely been an honor. It's like when you asked me a couple weeks ago if I wanted to do this, have this conversation. I'm we have the relationship that I think anytime any one of us recommends something, we're just like a yes. And then we think about it. It's like, what did I just say yes to? Right. It's like, all right, we'll figure it out. Right. But so, yeah, this is um, definitely been, an honor. There's a quote that's attributed to Mike Tyson
Mm,
that it's like everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face.
mm,
So, I believe that, but I also, in the context of self-awareness, because there's a study that says like 80% of people believe that they are self-aware, but only 12% actually are.
mm,
Um, and so, with a variation on that, Mike Tyson quote is that everyone thinks that they're self-aware until they get punched in the face. Then that number goes up or it
mm,
goes down, right? It's like, I guess
right.
I'm not aware. And so what I do is I invite people to see how they're showing up in their work, in their relationships, and for themselves, so they can have a choice, so they can make decisions
Mm,
to really be their authentic self.
mm,
And the more that you're just willing to say, yeah, that's not how I want to be, um or that's exactly how I want to be, and I'm okay with that. And so the more that you're willing to have those conversations and that inquiry about how you're showing up, the more you become aware, and I believe the more you can make a difference,
mm,
the way you want to. Because
absolutely.
most of the times when we're not making a difference, it's because we're not there.
Mm,
A representative is there,
yes.
So I'm inviting you to show up. I say in my closing, and it was a statement, and now I see it as an invitation.
Mm,
It's like my invitation is for you to get fully that the world wants you, the world needs you, but the world isn't waiting for you. So go be you. Go be you.
I love that. That it's really an invitation and really a call
Right.
to show up.
Right.
The world isn't sending us in order for us to publish anything, we need to go through the work of publishing it, right?
Right.
We
Absolutely.
need to push publish, or send off the draft to the publisher or whatever.
Right.
But we need there there are people out there who are ready to receive what we have to share,
Right.
but we've got to do the work to make that connection.
Right.
So thank you for doing that today in this conversation, Blaine.
Wonderful. Always a pleasure.
And with that, I will bid my audience adieu for the day. And until our stories meet again, be the bright light in someone's dark night. Ta ta.